Yes, we're going. We're going. Go live. We're going. All right, we did it. We are live. So, welcome everyone. My name is Lindsay Helm. I'm the founder and CEO of Empower Employee, where we are connecting corporate America through technology solutions and corporate education. As you see behind me, my virtual background. Shameless plug. Welcome to Empower Hour. We are launching our app on March 1st, and I can get you a link if you're interested. But more importantly, I'd like to welcome today our guest, Amanda Huffman. I am super excited about having Amanda here. So, Amanda, could you introduce yourself to all of the viewers and tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Sure. Yeah, I'm a Air Force veteran and a military spouse, and I served in the Air Force for 6 years as a civil engineer, and then I transitioned out of the military and became a stay-at-home mom. And through that, I started a blog, which eventually led to a podcast and becoming a freelance writer and publishing books. And so I am really passionate about women who have served in the military and women who are thinking about serving in the military. So I'm really excited about those two topics, and that's where a lot of my energy and focus goes towards.
So, how did you become passionate about the military community?
So I originally didn't want to be part of the military community. I kind of when I left the military, I was focused on being a mom, and I didn't really want to talk about what it was like to be in the military. I felt I was a little mad with how well my transition didn't go. I had a lot of resentment towards the emotions that I felt, and I felt blindsided. And so for a long time, I kind of straight away, but I also still shared part of my military experience because that's who I am, and people were most interested in that topic, and I started to gain people who are interested, asking questions, wanting to learn more, and so that kind of pushed me to dive deeper, and I started hearing stories of women who had served in the military when I did a deployment series, and I was thinking the deployment series was going to be mainly men, and it ended up being almost all women, and women in the military are badasses. And once I once I found that out, I mean, I knew that, but it was on the page, the stories that I got to hear, and I was like, people need to know about what women in the military have done. And so I decided I would totally shift my focus. Instead of focusing on deployments, I would focus on women, and that's what led me to where I am today.
Wow, that's like a lot. So you're right. Women that do serve in the military are badasses, but I think like women in general are just like badasses. I mean, shameless plug. But okay, so talk about where you are today. What has been the biggest challenge in like growing your business?
I think finding a way to bring in revenue streams, I'm doing a lot of different stuff, but most of it you could say is volunteer work because no one's paying me, because you have to people can listen to your podcast and that's great, but unless you have a sponsor, you don't actually make any money from podcasting. And I think a lot of people think, well, you have a lot of people listening. It's like that doesn't pay the bills. And so I growing different revenue streams and being able to shift from being a hobby, which is where my original passion came from, to changing to being a business.
Yeah. So let's talk about what we really, I mean, it's all true. Running a business is hard. And I think there's a preconceived notion. Let's just talk about this for a second and then we'll talk about this. I'm really excited about this.
Mine too.
Like, yeah, we talk. I feel special because you signed it, but yeah, we do. I think a lot of people, especially as a smaller business and a female-owned and veteran-owned business for us at Empower Employee, I think people look from the outside and they see like all of the marketing and all of the team and all of the glory of it all. They don't see the time that I cried because I lost a contract and that meant that I was going to have to not take a paycheck so that I could keep somebody else. They don't see the hours of travel and the grind and the planning and like really like the emotional side of it. And I think we were going to talk about this a little bit. And they don't see the founder who may or may not have undiagnosed or diagnosed ADD and ADHD and how hard that is when you're not medicated or you don't have a coping mechanism that it makes to like run an organization. They don't really see like the downside. And I try to stay positive, but it's the same thing. Your business depends on the revenue stream, and just because you're making money doesn't mean that there's a profit, right? So like
Right.
there's, I mean, that's not true for us. We're okay most of the time, but I think a lot of businesses out there, you really have to get familiar with what that looks like. So anyway, but we really, 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 I am so excited. So, backstory for everybody, we got to talk about this. So, I was a military influencer this year, and I had met Amanda kind of virtually, through different programs where they may or may not have paid her. We won't talk about that. And it was like the first time I had ever got to meet her in person. And, I'd heard about, her story and that she was writing a book, but I never really got to look at it. And so for me, she was next to me at Mick and there was her book and I was like, oh, I got to buy this. So I've been reading through it. And so ladies and gentlemen, we should talk about this. It is, sorry, virtual. There we go. A military service, which covers if military service is the right choice for you, what branch to select, which pause. I'm very proud of the fact that I joined the Army. I do not think the Marine Corps would have been a fit for me. Although after being on active duty, I promise I'm going somewhere with this, and being in South Korea in the Army, I went to Osan Air Base and thought maybe I should have just switched branches and joined like the Air Force. And then like the Navy was out for me because I can't swim still. Like I failed drown proofing, but I'm very jealous of like the places they go. Managing stress and mental toughness and how to thrive in your military career. So let's talk about your book a little bit. You released this last year. Why did you release this book?
So I was having a conversation with a business coach about how do you help people, and she was she helped people with their blogs, and she said that the earliest in the process that people find her, the longer they stay with her and the more likely they're going to stay with her you know, and so we started talking about transitioning out of the military because that was where my original focus was. And so I was thinking like, where in the process can you help people? Is it 6 months before they transition? Is it 2 years? And through that conversation, we realized that actually the best place to help people transition out of the military is to help them from when they join the military. And so I created a lead magnet on my blog, A Girl's Guide to the Military, and I was like, how am I going to find girls, and do people actually need this product/service? And I was blown away on how many people like downloaded it for free and wanted more information and reached out to me and asked questions. And so I was like, a 5-page guide is great, but there's a whole bunch more that you can add to it. And so the response and the desire to help people led to me want to write a book. And so that's where the idea came from.
This is kind of off the cuff a little bit, but are you going into high schools and like talking to people, to these females, like maybe around ASVAB time? And are you connecting with them kind of, before they enter service with this book, or where's about the time that you meet them in their process?
Yeah, I'm working to get in high schools right now. I'm actually going next month to the ROTC unit that I was a part of when I was in college. And so I sent them copies of my book, and I'm going to meet with them. And they actually asked me yesterday, they're like, can we put you on Zoom and have you go to the Sacramento detachment as well? And I was like, I mean, I'm already speaking. Sure, why not? And so I'm trying to I would like to get into the high schools, but I'm still recovering from moving across the country. And so I'm building my network and working to get into the classrooms. But I thought ROTC is like something I'm familiar with and comfortable with. And I was actually surprised because they said that even though, like, you think ROTC, they've kind of picked their branch and they're on their path to joining the military, but so many young women feel intimidated and overwhelmed, and they drop out because they don't have the support that they need. So I'm actually really excited about getting a chance to go into ROTC units, and I'm hoping that this will help spur opportunities. And if someone's listening and they want me to come and talk, reach out.
Yeah, that'll be my next question, but I wanted to talk about kind of the support function of, joining the military in general and what that was like. I actually, it's funny you say that. So I come from a very small town in Kentucky called Dry Ridge. So yeah, it's Google it. Our claim to fame is basically a super Walmart, a blinking yellow light, and then like Noah's Ark. The population of our school is really tiny. And so for me, when I joined the military, you would think that, and I'm not bashing my parents, just humor me on this, but you'd think they'd be really excited that I found a way to go explore the world and serve my country and go to college and really kind of develop all of those skills. My parents were furious and my friends didn't understand it. They had no idea. And honestly, I don't know that I understood it. I didn't really have kind of the support. All I knew is that this recruiter, who is a great human, because I, again, would not be probably where I am or the type of person I am today without him. I don't feel lied to or any of that. But all I knew is this recruiter walked up to me one day and was like, "What do I have to do to get you to join the military?" Now, mind you, this was like post 9/11, like in the thick of it. We're talking like 2003 there. I just told you how old I am. So, I just said, I don't know. I want to get out of Dry Ridge. I want to see the world and I want to go to college, I think. And I didn't know what going to college meant. I just knew that when you were in high school, that's what you were supposed to do. None of my friends talked to me about going to college. I came from a very like humble upbringing. I'm the oldest of four. So like all of those things. So to this date, I love my dad, but my dad always makes horrible jokes about how his daughter joined the military because his sons couldn't do it. But that doesn't, it's what we kind of deal with, right? And then when I joined the military, oddly enough, it didn't feel like an inclusive culture for women at the time. I don't know what it feels like now based on what I've read in the in the news. It's probably not so great, but I just overall I totally agree with not having kind of that support. And I wish, where I was going with that is, I wish this guide would have been given to my parents, like, hey, she's not necessarily going to go get shot at. Now at the time the likelihood was extremely high, but she's not going to die, like all of those things. By the way, she's going to learn a career skill and develop. So it'll be really interesting to see where this goes and how this book develops. Is there a specific chapter inside of the book that you think is like the best ever?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know. I mean, I like all the chapters. I think my favorite chapters are the basic training chapters, which is funny because I hated basic training and I did not thrive. But I after I got done with basic training, I realized like how valuable the tools that I learned from basic training were, even though I felt like I wasn't, thriving in the situation and that I really struggled. And so I guess I wanted to include those chapters to talk about both the mental and the physical side, because I think that sometimes people just focus on the physical and they don't think about the mental, and how those two parts are really important. And graduation is like the most important thing. Like, yes, you can excel, you can do really well, but graduating and then taking the tools that you got from basic and using that through your career is really what's the most important thing. And I guess I'm a little bit of a perfectionist, so I wanted to be at the top and I wasn't. And so for a long time, I was like, oh, I wasn't the best. So it really didn't help me. But in reality, I think it helps everyone and it really does build a strong foundation for your service.
Yeah, and I was like, man, for basic training, I just wanted to live. I just wanted to graduate and not die. Like, no pun intended, but not be mortified, not be like embarrassed, not be the kid that calls everybody a bunch of ruckus. Which, by the way, if you're watching this and we graduated together, I am sorry because I did cause quite a ruckus. It was not proud of that. I didn't adapt well to basic training. Like, I was that kid that refused to train for a while. Not proud of it, but it was horrible. And so I look at it now and I'm like, man, it's a wonder I made it out. But from basic training to now, I have my bunkmate who is from New York, and we still communicate. I just watched her pin, I think, E7. I watched her get married. I've watched all of it kind of like from social media. I've bumped into her in South Korea. We have a mutual friend that's like her childhood best friend. That's how small the army is. And I guess the point behind that is like, you get friends forever, you get family forever. And if she called me today, and yelled at me in Spanish, which she used to do, by the way, during basic training when she'd get mad at me. And I didn't speak a lick of Spanish, so for all I know, she could have swore at me. But to date, if she called me right now and said, "Hey, I need you to fly to Puerto Rico or to New York or to wherever," I would drop everything I was doing and just go do that. And so in that regard, I guess you do get that support long term. Hi, LinkedIn user. I can't see your name, but thanks for joining. So lastly, we mentioned, we talked about your book and what your plans are and kind of your experience and a little bit about my experience, which is fun because I never really share about like the military. I'm kind of with you. I'm kind of intimidated. Like I don't feel like I did anything cool, like did I deploy? No, it skipped me. Did I go do this? Yeah. Have I done some really cool assignments and done some really amazing things? Sure. But do I talk about them kind of publicly? No. And I think most of my memories, and I don't know about you, come from like the moments that nobody was watching, I guess is kind of like, not that anything scandalous happened, but like those private moments are kind of those lesser scale moments where you did something really awesome that kind of saved the day, or you helped somebody else out was kind of like the thing of it all. So how do people get in contact with you?
Well, you can follow me on LinkedIn. That's my favorite platform to hang out on. And then I also have a blog, airmantomom.com. And
Okay.
if you want to hear stories of women who've served in the military, you can go and check out Women of the Military, which is on Apple Podcasts and Google and, all those podcast apps, right?
All they're out there, they're everywhere. Yeah, I'm going to drop your link. Hey,
Spotify.
there we go. So there's your LinkedIn. It's coming. Everyone pause. My internet has been wonky today. There we go. And then you said you have your podcast. So we'll have people reach out to you as far as your podcast. I'm honored that I get to be a guest and we could really dive deep into some of the embarrassing things that happened to me during military service, times that I got an award for something I didn't do, which I still like make fun of. Okay, we should probably just talk about this before you go because like people are like, she said that. I did do the work. However, in typically Lindsay resourceful nature, I had somebody with a lot of rank run up to me and I did not have a ton of rank. And they said, we need this task done like right now. And they assumed because I was part of the like communication section that I knew how to do said task, which I'll tell you about on your podcast. And I've never done it before. So I picked up the phone. I phoned a friend. I called my husband at the time and I said, "Hey, we have the same job. Have you ever done this before?" He goes, I do that all the time. And I'm like, "Yeah, you want to come help me so I don't get screamed at?" And he took a lunch break and came over and helped me assemble an OE254 and we install it into the side of a building. Dude comes back like an hour later and he's like, "Oh my God, great job." And I was like, "Thanks." And then I got an award, which I felt really bad about because I tried to explain like, anyway, so we'll talk about that. But I
You
hope that
still got it done, right?
I did get it done, but it always felt like it was like kind of a sham kind of thing. I mean, I did get it done, like mission first, get it done, but it wasn't. It just makes me laugh now, and I'm like, if that's the resourcefulness we were dealing with at 19-year-old Lindsay, 30 some odd year old Lindsay running her was really come a long way. But I'm looking forward to being on your podcast. And thank you so much for joining. And I'm going to end. But next week, ladies and gentlemen, and those of you watching, please tune in for our launch party. If you haven't registered, please do so. We'll share a little bit about Empower Hour, Empower Employee, who we are, what we do, and this app that we have worked so hard to build over the last year. So thank you all so much for watching and have a great afternoon. I'll see you next week.